All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to PPA 555, Public Budgeting and Finance, and also welcome to fall semester. My name is Dr. Powell, and I'll be the instructor for the course. Let's see how we're doing. We've got 14 folks here, so we have 17 altogether in the class, so almost everyone is here. So we'll go ahead and get started, and remaining few people can join when they come along. But again, welcome to fall semester. This is my 22nd year teaching here at Cal State Long Beach. It seems like every single summer gets shorter and shorter over the past 22 years, and this summer is no exception. So kind of difficult to wrap my brain around the idea that we are actually beginning fall semester, but it is upon us. And so what I would like to do tonight with our first Zoom session is essentially just kind of lay out the class for you, talk to you a little bit about some of the requirements for the class, some of the things that we're trying to achieve in the course. We're gonna hold off on some substantive information, not do that tonight. So tonight will probably be a relatively short session, but I think it's instructive, especially for a course like this, that we're all on the same page and we all understand what the course is all about and what we're going to be doing, when we're going to be doing it, and why we're going to be doing it. So again, kind of a limited agenda tonight, but we'll really get into our more substantive information once we make it to next week's class. All
Let me
right.
sit with you.
Let me go ahead. If you can just mute your microphone for now, and then we'll be good to go. Okay. All right. Again, my name's Dr. Powell. Like I said, it's my 22nd year here at Cal State Long Beach. I usually teach this budgeting course only in the summers, and so it's kind of unusual for me to be teaching this in a fall or spring semester. But I was kind of called into action this semester because Dr. Moore, who is our budgeting guru in the department and has been our budgeting guru for, I think, some like 25 years now, he's entered the faculty early retirement program, which means he does not teach in the fall. He only teaches in the spring semester. And so that created a hole for filling, to teach 555. And so that's why I've been recruited to do it this fall. So since I usually teach 555 in the summer, I have the course designed around 6-week modules. This is obviously a little bit longer than 6 weeks, and so that's why we kind of have the luxury tonight of not needing to go into a lot of substantive information and still staying on schedule with what we need to cover. As you know, this is a core course in the program. And in order to be admitted into this course, you had to have completed a microeconomics course or PPA 518 here in the MPA program. I'm assuming everyone has done that, or else you wouldn't be here. You would have gotten a permit. If for some reason there's anyone who hasn't fulfilled that prerequisite to be in the class, I'm not going to ferret anyone out. And so if you don't tell me, I won't know. And you can certainly stay in the class, but it is somewhat helpful for you to have that microeconomics background, just so we can kind of hit the ground running with a lot of our discussion of public finance and some of the reasons for government intervention in the economy and why we have things like public goods to begin with. But it is a core course, and so our goal at the end of this course is to equip you with the skills that you need when you go into PPA 697 to then be able to complete the 697 budgeting case study. So we'll cover all the information you need to do a good job on that case study. And I'm assuming a lot of people will probably be moving into 697 next semester, or if not next semester, next fall. So hopefully this course will equip you well for success as you finish up that part of the program. So let me spend a few minutes here just going through the syllabus. The Beachboard site has been open for a while now, so I hope you've had a chance to go on to Beachboard, kind of poke around the website, take a look at the syllabus, and kind of familiarize yourself with the course and the course requirements. As you probably already know, Cal State Long Beach is transitioning from Beachboard to Canvas. And so we're kind of in the middle of that transition right now. Some of your instructors may have already transitioned to Canvas for this fall semester. I have chosen not to, so we're sticking with Beachboard for this semester, and I'm assuming I'll probably end up transitioning for the spring. So everything we do will be on Beachboard, so you don't have to worry about Canvas at all for this class specifically. But just know that Canvas is coming in the future. I think the requirement is that all instructors have to use Canvas by summer session next summer. I think that's the deadline for everyone to make the full transition from Beachboard to Canvas. So if you haven't heard about that yet, just to put that on your radar, that it is coming very, very quickly. But for us this semester, we are all Beachboard. So you probably had a chance to take a look at the syllabus, but what I'd like to do is just run through the syllabus with you, cover some of the most important points in the syllabus, and talk to you a bit about some of the assignments that you're going to be doing. I know I've had a couple of questions through email already about the pre and the post-instructional assignments, so we'll go through both of those assignments, and I'll talk you through all the requirements of both of those assignments so everyone can do a good job on them. But just start at the beginning of the syllabus. Again, you probably read through it, but you know who I am now. You know when the class sessions are. This is a hybrid course, which means that we only meet for the first half of the semester. So our quote-unquote semester together for this course ends on October 11th. And so we're only the first 7.5 weeks of the semester. That then allows you to take a second half hybrid if you would like, and basically get 2 courses done at the time it would normally take you to finish up 1 course. We've been doing these types of hybrid courses for many years now. I developed the hybrid approach along with a former colleague of mine who's now retired. We developed it way back in, I think, 2006 or 2007. I've been offering them ever since. We started out with 1 or 2 sections as hybrids. Now, I think the majority of our courses, or close to a majority of our courses, are now offered in this hybrid type of approach. So we're hybrids, we meet for only the first half of the semester, but we are also online. So all of our sessions will be done online through Zoom. You don't have to go to campus for any sessions at all for this course. I know we kind of have a mixture in our schedule this semester between online courses and on-campus courses. Our hybrid course is a synchronous online course whereby we have our synchronous meetings real time at 4 o'clock on Tuesday in Zoom. Then you also have some additional asynchronous work that you'll be doing via discussion board. And so we kind of combine both elements together into the way in which you've designed this course. Got my contact information up there on the screen for you. Hopefully everyone can see the syllabus. If not, let me know in text chat and we'll fix it. But my office hours for this course are Tuesdays from 1 to 3 p.m. They obviously are virtual, and so you can always contact me through email and discuss any questions or any concerns that you may have about the course. My phone number is on there, but I strongly recommend that you use email rather than giving me a call, because I'm not going to be on campus very frequently this fall. All my courses I'm teaching, I'm doing online this semester. I'm no longer a department chair, and so I'm trying to keep my distance from campus a little bit for the next couple of semesters. So do contact me through email. I have all my emails pushed to my phone, and so you should be able to get a response to an email very quickly. If you email me and you don't get a response within 24 hours, by all means follow up, because that's going to be a very rare occurrence, and I usually try and stay on top of my emails as best I can. So again, this is Intro to Public Budgeting and Finance. We have limited expectations with a course like this because it is really a survey-oriented type of course. We can only do so much in a course like this, especially in 7.5 weeks. So what we're going to do is equip you with the skills you need to be successful on the budgeting case study, introduce you to the role of budgeting in the public sector and nonprofit organizations, introduce you to different ways in which you can construct budgets, different ways to analyze budgets, how to assess the fiscal solvency of organizations and governments by viewing their budget and their annual financial reports. But we're kind of limited in terms of that's what we're going to end up trying to accomplish in this course. So you may not leave this course as a full-fledged budget analyst, but you will leave this course being able to access, read, and analyze budgets and understand the role of budgeting in the public sector. Now, we are a NASPA accredited program, as I'm sure you're all aware of by now. And as a NASPA accredited program, we have certain expectations and certain standards that we are held to. This is actually our site visit year. So Dr. Butts and I finished up our self-study that was submitted last week, and we'll have a site visit team coming to visit us probably in January or February to renew our accreditation for an additional 7 years. But as a NASPA accredited program, we need to abide by certain standards and teach certain types of competencies. So every NASPA accredited program in the country needs to teach 5 main universal competencies to all of their students, so that when someone graduates from a NASPA accredited MPA program, that person is able to do 5 different things, have 5 different universal competencies that they walk away from the program with. You'll see those listed on the syllabus. Universal required competency number 1 is to lead and manage in the public interest. Competency number 2 is to participate and contribute to the policy process. Number 3 is to analyze, synthesize, think critically, solve problems, and make evidence-informed decisions in a complex and dynamic environment. Competency number 4, to articulate, apply, and advance a public service perspective. And number 5, to communicate and interact productively in culturally responsive ways with a diverse and changing workforce and society at large. So what I have done is I've taken the course objectives from this course and I've aligned them with those 5 universal competencies. Now you notice not all of those competencies are measured in this course. In this course, we are primarily concerned with competencies 1 and competency 3. So you'll see our first course learning objective is to correctly identify budget formats. That's something that you will do on your exam. That's something that you will do in your pre and your post instructional assignment. It's something that you will do in one of your beach board essays. That is aligned directly with universal competency number 1, to lead and manage in the public interest. To effectively lead and manage in the public interest, you need to be aware of what budgets look like in different types of budget formats. Money is really the lifeblood of all organizations, especially in the public sector. If you don't have appropriations, you don't have money, you're not going to have your doors open very long. So it's important that you're able to identify these different types of budget formats and to be able to articulate the advantages and disadvantages of each one of those formats. Our second course learning objective, you'll see there on the syllabus, is to evaluate the fiscal solvency of a local government. That's something that you will do both in your pre as well as your post-instructional assignment for this class, directly linked to universal competency number 3, to analyze, synthesize, think critically, solve problems, and make evidence-informed decisions. Third course learning objective, to analyze sources of revenue, obviously aligned with competency number 3. To articulate the need for fund-based accounting and different accounting methods, linked with number 1, because accounting and auditing are so important to the public sector that you're not going to be able to lead or manage a public organization unless you're able to lead and manage the auditing and accounting processes as well. Number 5 course objective, to evaluate comprehensive financial reports, obviously linked to competency number 3. Number 6 learning objective, to analyze different types of debt mechanisms and capital budgeting. Again, it's analysis, so it's aligned with competency number 3. And then finally, course learning objective number 7, to create budgets based on assignment requirements. You will be doing that in part 2 of your post-instructional assignment, directly linked then to a universal required competency number 1. So I just thought it was good for you, especially now that we're in our self-study, our site visit year, that you're really clear on how this course is contributing to those universal required competencies that are required by NASPA for national accreditation. Now, in terms of the nature of the course, as I told you before, this is a hybrid course, so we only meet for the first half of the semester. We have our Zoom meetings at 4 o'clock on Tuesdays, and then you'll be doing some asynchronous work on discussion board for the remaining contact hours. There are what are called Carnegie contact hours for courses, and so we are required to abide by the Carnegie contact hours. And those Carnegie contact hours require 45 hours of instructor-led contact with students and an overall total of 90 hours of contact that doesn't necessarily have to be instructor-led. So in our Zoom sessions on Tuesday afternoons, that counts toward our instructor-led contact hours. Our work in discussion board also contributes to those contact hours as well. And then the remaining of the 90 contact hours will come from the assignments that you're doing, your pre and post instructional assignment, and your final examination. So we're kind of a combination of synchronous as well as asynchronous. Now, these sessions that we're having on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock, I am recording this session. I will record all of our sessions, and I'll then make a link available on our Beachboard site by tomorrow morning that will have the recording there for you. So you can go back at any time you want throughout the week, review the recording, refresh yourself on information if you need to. I do not take attendance in these Zoom sessions. I feel that's completely up to you as professionals to decide how to balance your schedules. And so if you're not here live and in person on a Tuesday, there won't be any points deducted from that. You can watch the recording, but I do recommend that if you're not able to be here on a Tuesday, that you do watch the recording, because there's information that we will cover in our Zoom sessions that will not be covered in the Mike Cell textbook. I don't teach from the textbook because I don't think that you gain a whole lot from just having someone who teaches from the textbook. I think you really learn from 3 different sources, especially in a graduate level class. If I do my job correctly, hopefully you'll learn something from me. You'll learn something from the John Mike Cell textbook. And then thirdly, you'll also learn from each other through these class sessions, as well as through your participation in our 5 discussion board essays. So that's the nature of the course. You know, it does go by very, very quickly, and I will warn you about that. I have designed the course with that in mind, that it's only 7.5 weeks. It's going to go by very fast. That's why we really only have 1 textbook for this course. That's why I've tried to limit the number of assignments to keep them as practical and as doable as possible. But do know that things will roll around quickly. I mean, we will be done by October 10th or 11th. That's not all that far away. And so you really want to stay on top of the readings and really want to stay on top of the assignments as well. And at any time, as I'm going through the syllabus and talking about the course, if you have any questions at all, you can put your questions in text chat, or you can always, flag me down, and you can use your microphone to ask questions. So, feel free to ask questions along the way. Once we're done with the syllabus and discussion of the course requirements, we'll then have some time as well to answer any questions that you may have before we go on our way this evening. So evaluation criteria. I know this is always a very important consideration for most folks. And so I've listed that in our syllabus as well. What types of assignments will you be doing? We are a core course in the program. And as you know, because you've been in the program for a while now, all of our core courses, with the exception of PPA 500 and PPA 697, should, and I emphasize should, have pre and post instructional assignments. The pre and post instructional assignments are our course-based assessment mechanisms so that we can discern how much you have learned and what skills you have acquired during your time in a particular course. So the pre-instructional is obviously an assessment device to see what skills and knowledge you have upon entering the course. And then the post-instructional is a similar assignment to then measure similar competencies as you are then leaving the course. So you have both pre and post-instructional assignment in this course. The pre-instructional assignment, and I've got details of it later on the syllabus, and so when we get to the end of the syllabus, I'll talk specifically about what you're doing in the pre and the post-instructional assignments, but just to foreshadow it a little bit now. In the pre-instructional assignment, what you will do is you will obtain a budget from a city here in Southern California, which is as simple as going to their website. Just about every city now will have a link to their budget in electronic format. So whatever city you want to focus on, you go to their website, download their budget, you will read the budget, and then you will answer 8 very simple questions on that budget. Now that's the pre-instructional assignment, and so I don't anticipate that you'll be able to answer all of those questions. Some of the questions you will need the information from the class later on in order to be able to answer those questions. So as you are answering those 8 questions, and again, we'll look at those questions in a second, but you'll be answering questions such as, what budget format is the city using? Now, if you've never dealt with a budget before, you may not know what the budget formats are. So you may not have the information right now on the pre-instructional to answer that question. So if you don't have the information, you can simply say, I do not have the information to answer this question. That's a legitimate answer on the pre-instructional assignment. Because a pre-instructional assignment is only an assessment device. They're not right or wrong answers. I'm not grading it in terms of the quote-unquote correctness of your answers. I'm using it as an assessment tool to try and learn how much you know about budgets and different formats of budgets and analyzing budgets. So if you don't know anything about formats, you can just say, I don't know. I do not have the information to answer the question. Another example for you of a question is I asked a question on there about the top 3 revenue sources. So what are the top 3 revenue sources for the city? I'll ask a question on what are the top 3 expenditures, areas of expenditure for the city. Now for those, you probably can answer those even on the pre-instructional. It's a matter of reading through the budget and identifying the top 3 sources of revenue and the top 3 areas of expenditure. So I think everyone can probably answer the revenue and the expenditure question. Another question you may not be able to answer in the pre-instructional is on fiscal solvency. So I ask you in the pre-instructional to, based upon your analysis of the budget, analyze the solvency, the fiscal solvency of the city. Now, chances are you're probably not going to be able to do that at this point unless you have a lot of budgeting experience. Again, that's a point where you can say, I do not have the information to answer that question. So this is just a simple assessment mechanism. It basically is graded on a credit, no credit basis. And so you turn it in, you've answered all those questions, even if your answer is, I don't know the answer, or I don't have the information yet, and you'll get full credit for that pre-instructional. We're just trying to find out what you know as you come into the program. Then at the end of the course, you have the post-instructional assignment. And the post-instructional assignment is broken up into 2 parts. Part 1 of the post-instructional is a redo of the pre-instructional. So in part 1 of the post-instructional, you're just going to re-answer those 8 questions from the pre-instructional assignment. For the second part of the post-instructional, you will go through a budget exercise that I'm providing to you and use it to create a budget document. So in part 2, you're actually creating a budget, and then you're going to provide justifications for the budget that you created. And I'll show you that in just a few minutes, but that's the way in which we get at that learning objective of the ability to create a budget. So post-instructional part 1 is a redo of the pre-instructional, re-answering those 8 questions using all the information that you've learned in the course. And then part 2, you'll be creating a budget document of your own using the exercise I provide for you. When you do the pre-instructional, the instructions are, do not use any information from the class whatsoever. The only information you use in doing your pre-instructional is what you already know about budgets and budgeting. So don't use any of the information from the Mike Sell textbook or any of the PowerPoint slides I have on our Beachboard site. Don't use any of that information, just use what you know on the pre-instructional. Then the post-instructional, you can use all the information from the class. So in part 1 of the post-instructional, when you're re-answering those 8 questions, you have to provide answers to each of those 8 questions, because ostensibly you have learned that information in the course and you are now able to apply that information to accurately answer those questions. So you got a pre and a 2-part post-instructional assignment. We then also have a final examination that we use in this course. I refer to it as an exam. It's really kind of an assessment in that it's not your traditional exam. So you don't have to take it in class. You don't have to take it over a certain period of time. I will make the final examination available to you at least 2 weeks before the conclusion of the course, and you can work on the final assessment at your leisure. The final exam or assessment, whatever you want to refer to it as, is scenario-based. So I provide you with 5 different scenarios and 2 questions related to each scenario. You take the information you've learned in the course, and then you apply it to those scenarios. The scenarios I'll provide for you are relatively brief. They're usually 1 or 2 paragraphs. but it will allow you the opportunity to take the information and apply it in a somewhat practical type of setting. That's the whole goal of an MPA program, in my opinion, is that an MPA program is not just an academic program, it's also a professional program. So as an academic program, there are certain scholarly requirements of you in terms of your writing and your ability to do critical analysis. But on the professional side, we're also needing to be very practical. We need to find the nexus between a lot of the skills and a lot of the theories we cover in the program and their application in the quote unquote real world of public administration and public policy. And so I kind of hope that a scenario-based final assessment allows you to find that nexus between theory and practice. It's all about application, which again means on the final exam assessment, there are not any real right answers. There's no one answer that is correct. It's how well you justify your answer. So for instance, I might give you a scenario where I tell you, here's a city, and here are some of the problems that a city is encountering in its budget process. Based upon all those problems in the scenario, what budget format do you believe would be most appropriate for the city to adopt, and why is that the most appropriate format? Now, one person may pick a line item, one person may pick performance, one person may pick program-based budgeting. Those can all be correct answers as long as you have justified the answer well enough. You need to support your answer. And so just like in the real world of public administration, there very seldom are panaceas. We don't really have cure-alls or one answer that fits every situation. It's more of the most appropriate answer for that given situation. So that's your final examination. And again, you'll have at least 2 weeks to work on that. You get to use your notes, the textbook, any information at your disposal. You can use that to complete the final examination. Then you also have 5 graded beach board postings. And so we've got 5 weeks where there will be prompts in beach board and discussion board, and you'll go in and you'll respond to those prompts. What I'm looking for with your beach board postings is I'm looking for parsimony. So I hope that you're able to keep your answers concise, but yet complete enough to address the prompt that I have provided for you. And once we're done with the syllabus, we'll go ahead and open up the beach board site, and I'll show you each one of the discussion board prompts that you're going to be doing, and it'll kind of make a little bit more sense to you at that point. So those are the assignments we're going to be working on. Again, we'll talk more about the pre and post instructional assignment in just a minute. The grading scale, as you know, here at Long Beach, we're only A, B, C, D, F. We don't have any pluses or any minuses. Grades of A, B, and C all count toward graduate credit for all of our courses with the exception of 697. Once you get to PPA 697, only A and B grades count. If you get a C in 697, you would have to repeat 697. Any other course in the program, as long as you get a C, you do not need to go and repeat that course. I've got some grading rubrics. I'll let you read through those on your own in terms of the specifics about how each assignment is being graded. It'll make more sense again after we go through our discussion of the pre and post instructional and the final examination. So I'll let you read that a little bit later. Any questions up to this point in time? Again, we'll get to some details in just a couple of minutes, but any questions right now? Okay, we'll keep rolling through them. Our course schedule, what are we covering and when are we covering it? Again, this is an accelerated class, and I always make this point as forcefully as I can, in that this is a hybrid course, and so it's an abbreviated quote-unquote semester together, but we don't cut out information. So you're not getting less information in a hybrid 555 than you would in a 15-week 555. Instead, we accelerate the coverage of that information. So what you might spend 2 weeks on in a 15-week course, we'll spend 1 week on here in our hybrid approach. So you cover all the same information, you just do it much more quickly in this type of a course modality. So week number 1, we're just covering the syllabus, the course requirements, probably be out of here in less than an hour tonight. Then beginning, and what I do ask you to do though is once we're done with class night, before we meet again next Tuesday, If you could, please post an introduction on discussion board, in the discussion board forum, and do that by August 29th. That introduction can just be a very brief introduction about who you are, maybe why you're in the program, what your interests are, what your career aspirations are, just to introduce yourself to your classmates, and everyone can get to know each other a little bit better. That is not graded, and it's just there for everyone's edification, so we can learn more about everyone else. So please do that by August 29th if you could. And then you should also start thinking about what city you want to use for the pre-instructional assignment. Now, for many folks, you work in a city currently, you work for a city, and so a lot of people use the city that they are working for. If you're not currently working for a city, chances are you're living in a city, and so you might want to use the city you're living in. If you don't want to do either of those things, you can pick a different city if you would like. Just about any city in Southern California is going to work equally well for the pre-instructional assignment. One piece of advice I would give you as you are thinking about what city to use is to take a look at their budget and see how their budget is organized. Most good budgets will have a budget summary at the beginning. That budget summary may be anywhere from 5 to 20 pages. And in that budget summary, they will probably provide answers to most of those 8 questions, especially in terms of revenues and expenditures. A good budget summary will already lay out all the different revenue areas. It will provide percentages of revenue. We'll probably even give you a pie chart or a table representing all the different revenue sources. We'll also do the same thing for expenditure. That's a good budget summary. So if you can find a budget that has that good of a budget summary, the city kind of does a lot of the work for you on the pre-instructional assignment. So take a look at what the budget summary looks like. And again, budgets sometimes can be 100, 150, 200 pages, but it's really that budget summary, that first 5 to 20 pages that can answer a lot of questions you need answered for your pre-instructional assignment. So think about what city you want to use. If you have a question as to whether or not this city is going to work, you can feel free to send me an email and just say, I'm thinking about using this city. Here's a link to the city's budget. What do you think? And I'm more than happy to provide you feedback. I've been using a similar assignment to this for the past 20 odd years here at Cal State Long Beach. And so I think I've seen just about every budget from every city in Southern California at this point in time. So I'll be able to kind of point you in the direction if it's a budget that may not work all that well. Some budgets are a little bit harder to decipher and get through than others. Again, a good budget summary will go a long way to help you complete the pre-instructional assignment. Let's see, a question in text chat. Does it have to be a city within SoCal, or it can be anywhere in California? It can be anywhere in California. So if you're working someplace else in California, you're familiar with the city in another part of California, you can absolutely use any city in California that you would like. I do recommend using cities. In the past, some folks have used counties. That gets a little bit more difficult just because of the sheer size of the budget. I had some people want to use LA County. LA County has a strange budgeting system, and their budget is just, it's massive. And so it's kind of hard to work through. It doesn't have the best budget summary. So I really recommend using a city, but any city in California will certainly work. Okay. Then next week, in week 2, we will get into a discussion of the Intro to Public Finance and Budgeting. We'll talk about foundational issues such as what are public goods, what are private goods. We'll talk about the proper role of government in the provision and production of goods. We'll talk about when provision and or production can and should be left to the private sector. We'll talk about the definition of budgets. We'll talk about the purpose of budgeting. We'll talk about the actors and individuals involved in the budgeting process. We'll talk about all those foundational issues next week. Chapter 1 in Micel, it's not on the syllabus there, but Chapter 1 in Micel would be good reading for you to do in preparation for next week. Then your first graded beach board essay number 1, is then due by September 5th. And I'll show you what that is in just a second. Then we'll move into our third week. In our third week, we'll get into the process of budgeting and really the details in the budgeting process. We will focus primarily on the federal budget process as a guide then for understanding how budgeting works in California, as well as how it works at the local government level. Here in California, our process has some differences from the federal process, but it's very executive driven, much the same way the federal budget process is. And a lot of our localities, it tends to be an executive driven process as well. Then we'll also talk about budget formats. We'll present to you 4 different budget formats: line item, performance-based, program-based, and zero-based budgeting. I'll show you examples of those 4. We will talk about advantages and disadvantages associated with each one of those different types of budget formats. And then you have your pre-instructional assignment then due by September 12th. Whenever I say an assignment is due, it's due by 11:59 p.m. So you've got the entire day. So that pre-instructional assignment will be due by 11:59 and 59 seconds on September 12th. Then we'll get into week number 4, where we'll talk about analysis in budgeting. We'll talk about how you use analytical tools like with revenue forecasting, prior moving averages, prior moving changes. We'll talk about deterministic modeling. We'll touch very briefly on econometrics. We'll talk about how you analyze fiscal solvency, and I will introduce you to a couple of different ways in which you can assess fiscal solvency, some indicators known as Brown's 10-point fiscal indicators, and then other indicators that come from authors Wang, Dennis, and Tu, and kind of show you different specific ways in which you can assess the solvency of a city's finances. That will then give you the information that you'll need when you do part 1 of your post-instructional, and you're re-answering that question on fiscal solvency. That's why in the post-instructional, you'll then have the opportunity to actually answer that question, because you'll have already been presented with 10 to 20 different ratios that can be used to assess fiscal solvency, in which you'll select maybe 2 or 3 of those to use to come to your conclusion about the solvency of the city's finances. Then we'll also that week talk about accounting, financial reporting. We'll talk about auditing, everyone's favorite topic. And then your second graded Beach Board essay is then due by September 19th by midnight, 11:59 and 59 seconds. Then we'll get into week number 5, and we'll look at public expenditures, estimating revenues, but spend most of our time looking at capital budgeting and debt management. There are 2 main types of budgeting that state and local governments do. They have operating budgets for their day-to-day operations, and then they also have capital budgets that are the more long-term projects, such as buildings or a fleet of police vehicles, and they fund those long-term projects through their capital budgets. Capital budgeting is a different process than how we put together an operating budget. So we'll spend time in week 5 talking about the capital budgeting process. We'll talk about capital improvement plans and how those are created. We'll talk about how we compare projects to each other to determine what gets included in the capital improvement plan. We'll talk about different types of debt, how we pay for a lot of these projects. We'll talk about short-term debt versus long-term debt, different types of governmental bonds and their advantages and their disadvantages. So a lot of discussion about capital budgeting and debt in that week. You then have essay number 3 that's due by September 26th. Then we get into week number 6, and week number 6 will devote most of our attention to taxation. So we'll talk about revenue, generating revenue and revenue collection. We'll talk about the major forms of taxation: property taxes, income taxes, and consumption-based or sales-based taxes. We'll then also talk about some non-tax sources of revenue, things like user fees and user charges, which have become very, very important, especially here in California in the wake of Proposition 13 back in 1978. It really made local governments reorient away from property tax revenue and move more toward non-tax sources of revenue like user fees and user charges. We'll talk about some of the advantages of user charges and user fees, and also some of the situations that will limit their use. You cannot use them to completely supplant all of your tax-based sources of revenue. Then you have Beach Board number 4 due on October 3rd, and then your post-instructional assignment parts 1 and 2 will also be due on October 3rd as well. Then in week number 7, we will finish up our discussion of collecting revenue. We'll talk about different revenue collection mechanisms, but spend most of our time talking about intergovernmental fiscal relations. And we'll talk about different types of intergovernmental grants and what they mean for state and local finance. We'll also talk about the fiscal impact of mandates and how they have an impact upon how we raise and spend money at the state and the local level. Do a course wrap up of all of our information, kind of put a bow on everything, talk a little bit about the future of public budgeting and finance. Then you've got your final graded Beach Board essay number 5 that is due on October 10th, and then your final examination, which will then be due by October 11th. October 11th is our official end of the course. We're going to use that October 11th, rather than having a Zoom session, we're going to use it for you to complete your final examination to finish up what you have left on your final exam. So on October 11th, what we'll do is that you'll be working on your final exam if you haven't completed it already. If you already have it done, then there's nothing for you to do on October 11th, you're all done. But if you're still working on it, I will be available by email to answer any questions you have or give you whatever guidance you need as you complete that final exam. So that's our truncated semester together. For your convenience, I've also listed there for you the due dates for the different assignments. So pre-instructional, again, due on September 12th, post-instructional due on October 3rd, final then due on October 11th, Beach Board essays, introduction due by August 29th, and then you can see the dates for all of your 5 graded Beach Board essays. So you've got all that. It's kind of one-stop shopping for all of your due dates. Also in our Beach Board side, I've made use of the calendar, and I've put all the due dates in the calendar as well. So when you log into Beach Board, into our course site, you'll see all the different assignments and all the due dates for those assignments. Policy on late assignments, hopefully nothing will be late, but if something does come in late, then I have a 10% penalty for every 24 hours that an assignment is late. I do understand that you have other obligations beyond just the NPA program. I know most of you have full-time employment, you have family obligations. I realize that, and so if life does intervene, as sometimes it does, and it's going to preclude you from getting an assignment turned in by the due date, I do ask that you reach out to me in advance, tell me what's going on. If you need an extension, let me know how long of an extension you need, and we can usually make some accommodations to help you avoid any type of a late penalty. But do reach out to me in advance if at all possible so that we can avoid those late penalties. Methods for delivery of assignments. Everything is going to come in through the Dropbox on Beach Board. You're probably familiar with that process by now. The only exception to that will be your discussion board essays, which you will be posting directly into the relevant discussion forum. I'm only going, when I grade your discussion board essays, I'm looking for your response to my prompt. That's what I'm going to be grading. I'm looking for parsimony. I'm looking to be as concise as you can be. Typically, you can usually handle these discussion board essays in a couple of paragraphs. Usually 2 paragraphs is usually going to suffice to get the job done for the Beach Board essays. So I'm not looking for a dissertation. I'm looking for just the facts and your ability to respond to the prompt utilizing information from the course. You don't have to bring in outside information, and you don't have to use sources if you don't need to. But if you do use some outside information, please make sure to cite that in your Beach Board essay according to APA format, just so we know that everything's being properly cited. For most of these essays, you probably won't need to bring in a lot of outside information. You are more than welcome to respond to a classmate's post in a professional and courteous manner. I actually encourage that, but I'm not going to be grading your responses this semester to colleagues. I'm just going to grade your response to my initial prompt. So that's what's going to comprise your discussion board grade. Okay. So all those go into discussion board. I do ask that when you do put your essay in the discussion board, not to put it in as a link, actually copy and paste it directly into the discussion board form, because I would like for other people to be able to read it. And chances are, if it's a link, I won't click on the link and read it, but I think a lot of your colleagues may not. So it just makes it more available to everyone if you copy and paste directly into the relevant discussion board forum. Policy on withdrawals, I'll let you read that on your own. Again, if for some reason you need to withdraw from the class, or the class is not working for you, whatever the case may be, do make sure to go through the actual withdrawal process. Don't just stop coming and stop turning in assignments, because I don't drop people from classes. So unless you drop yourself from the class, you're going to remain on the roster throughout the duration of the course. And if we get to October 11th and your name's on the roster and I don't have anything to grade you on, that results then in a WU, an unauthorized withdrawal grade, which you do not want, because that counts as an F for GPA calculation purposes. Also, in incompletes, usually don't like to do incompletes unless there are extraordinary extenuating circumstances. And so, there's an illness, or your job forced you to move out of town or something on a very short notice, or something like that, family emergency. Otherwise, we usually don't do incompletes, because what I have found in my time here at Long Beach is that even with the best intentions, when someone gets an incomplete, that incomplete is good for a year. And if it's not taken care of in a year, then it automatically converts into a WU, which counts as an F. And unfortunately, even with reminders, I've had quite a few students in the past who have never gotten back to finish up that incomplete, and they've let it flip over to a WU. And then once those WUs go on your transcript, they're next to impossible to get off. They're really difficult to eliminate. So we'll try and avoid incompletes if at all possible. Same with our students with disabilities. If there's a documented disability, it says DSS, but BMAC, contact BMAC, and then they will send the accommodations notice to me, and I will approve that. The good thing about this course is there are no timed exams or no timed type of assignments, and so we usually have very few types of accommodations that we need to make for a class like this. So I already told you attendance policy. It's completely up to you. I leave it to you whether or not you attend these sessions. I understand some people, it's a Tuesday night, and so I understand some folks need to attend city council meetings or have responsibilities in city council meetings. Tuesdays are kind of popular nights for city council. So if something like that happens, you don't have to tell me in advance you're not going to be here, but watch the recording. And if you have any questions about the recording, you can feel free to reach out to me via email. Obviously, I think we're all familiar with the technological requirements, and so I'll leave that to you to read. I won't make many changes to the syllabus if I can avoid it. The only change I really ever make is in your favor. And so sometimes if we're running long on information, we have to push a topic from one week to the next. Those are the types of changes that we typically, if we do have to make a change to the syllabus, those are the typical changes that we make. Then you'll see all the required syllabus elements that are required by Academic Senate policy. Again, you can read through all those on your own. I won't waste your time tonight doing it. So let's scroll down to the end. And here at the end of the syllabus is where I have the specific information on the pre and the post-instructional assignments. So let's spend a few minutes talking about the pre and the post-instructional assignments, what they are, and the details about how you will be completing each one of those. Again, as I said before, the pre-instructional assignment is truly just an assessment mechanism. I'm not grading it for correctness. There are not right or wrong answers. If you don't have the information to answer the question, simply tell me you don't have the information to answer the question. What you'll do on the pre-instructional, as I had said, you will get a city budget. You will read that city budget, and then you will analyze the city budget, answering these 8 questions. Question number 1. What type of budget format is represented by this budget? Again, we haven't covered budget formats yet. We're going to kind of be on the cusp of covering them just before the pre-instructional assignment is due. So, we'll jump off that bridge when we come to it. But chances are you're probably not going to have the information you need to answer that question. If you have dealt with budgets before, and I've had some people in 555 who have had a wealth of experience in budgeting. In the distance learning program a few years ago, I had someone who was the capital projects manager for MTA. So he was in charge of a $500 million capital budget. He had a lot of budget experience, and so he was able to answer the questions in the pre-instructional. Some folks, you haven't dealt with budgets before. Maybe you've balanced a checkbook or done personal finances, so you may not have the information about what the budget formats are. But if you can answer that, tell me what budget format's being used. If you can't, just say, I don't have the information to answer that question. Then question number 2, what information did you use to arrive at your answer in question number 1? So if you're saying it's a line item budget, how did you know it was a line item budget? What information did you see in the budget that led you to believe that it was a line item budget? Obviously, if you answered, I don't have the information in question 1, then you'll just repeat that answer in question 2 as well. Number 3, what are the strengths of this type of budget? For example, is it easy to follow? Is it intuitive? Then number 4, what are the weaknesses of this type of budget? Is it confusing? Is it hard to follow? Is it not very transparent? Again, if you don't know what budget format it is, you're not able to answer question 1, then you may not be able to answer questions 3 and 4 either, so that I don't have the information is still a valid answer. Then for question number 5, I think everyone can answer this regardless of your experience with budgeting in the past. What are the 3 major sources of revenue for the city? List each revenue source by name, the amount of revenue generated from this source, and the percentage of total revenue that's generated from that source. So what I'm asking you to do for question number 5 is to produce a table, just a very simple 3-column table. In the first column, you will list the 3 top sources of revenue. So it could be property taxes. It could be transient occupancy taxes, which are hotel taxes, which several governments in Southern California are surprisingly reliant upon. Hotel taxes. It could be local option sales taxes. But you list the top 3 sources of revenue in your first column. Then the second column, the amount of revenue from each one of those sources. So the amount from the property tax, the amount from hotel taxes, the amount from local option sales taxes, whoever your 3 main sources are. And then the final column, the percentage of overall revenue that is being derived from that revenue source. So what percentage of overall revenue is coming from the property tax? So just 3 simple columns. The first column, the source of revenue. Second column, the amount from each source of revenue. The third column, percentage of total revenue that's coming from each one of those sources. Now, obviously, your third column is not going to add up to 100% because you're only picking the top 3 revenue sources. So don't worry when it doesn't add up to 100%. But it's just a 3-column, very simple table. I think we'll get the job done for question number 5. One thing you might want to consider as you are doing question 5 is, depending upon the budget that you choose, you may want to just focus on the general fund. Because as we'll learn later on in our class, there are different funds that cities use. And the primary fund they use for their everyday operations is the general fund. Most cities call it Fund 001. That's their general fund. If you want, you can just focus on the sources of revenue in that general fund rather than for the entire budget. And that might make it a little bit easier for you to handle question number 5. Now, if you have a budget that has a really good summary, the city might do it for you. They may list, or they probably will, and there's somebody break out the top revenue sources and the amount from each source and the percentage of total revenue. It may already be there, and it's just a matter of pulling it out of that budget summary, putting it in that 3-column table for answer to question 5. But everyone should be able to answer question 5. Then question 6, what are the 3 major areas of expenditure for the city? So the 3 objects that they spend their most money on. Little hint here is the vast majority of cities, their number 1 object of expenditure, if they have their own police department, is usually public safety. That's usually their number 1 object of expenditure. But the 3 objects of expenditure, the amount that's spent on each one of those areas of expenditure, and then the total amount of expenditure is being spent on those areas. And so again, very similar 3-column table like you do with revenue, you'll do it only for the 3 top expenditure areas for question number 6. And again, in a good budget summary, that information should already be there for you. It's just a matter of pulling it out, extracting it, and putting it into your answer for number 6. Number 7, is the city fiscally solvent? Again, this is a much more difficult question to answer. So I would think, unless you've dealt with budgets before, you may not feel comfortable answering this one. So it may be a case where you want to say, I don't have the information. If you've dealt with budgets before, you may know that there are a multitude of different ratios that we can use to determine fiscal solvency. So you can take a stab at whether or not the city is fiscally solvent. There's no right or wrong answer here. When you get to the post-instructional, you will then been exposed to all the different ways of measuring fiscal solvency. So at that point in time, you'll be able to answer the question. And then number 8, if you answer question 7, what information did you use to arrive at your answer on fiscal solvency? How do you know the city is fiscally solvent? So a really quick and easy way to do this assignment is just like in a memo format to me, and you can literally number the questions. And so you can just go, question number 1, it is a line item budget. Question number 2, I know it's a line item budget because blah, 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 and so on and so on. So you can number each one of the answers. You can do it just that simply if you would like, and that works out very well. Again, this is just an assessment mechanism, no right or wrong answers. It's essentially credit, no credit. I know here I say it should be brief, no more than 5 pages. I can't imagine even getting close to 5 pages. For most folks, depending upon your ability to answer the questions, it's usually 1 to 2 pages for the pre-instructional. Questions on the pre-instructional? Oops. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand assignment. Okay. Then let's talk about the post-instructional. Now, the post-instructional, again, as I said, it's a 2-part assignment. So in the pre-instructional, you're not using any course information in order to answer those questions. You're only using what you currently know about budgets. In the post-instructional, in part 1, you will re-answer those same 8 questions. And this time, you do need to provide an answer to each one of those questions because you have then been provided with the information in class to be able to answer each question. So I'm expecting answers to each one of the questions. You can use all the information from the course that you've acquired to answer those questions. So you can use PowerPoint slides, lecture notes, textbook, everything except each other in order to answer those questions. And one really easy way to do part 1 is you can copy and paste your pre-instructional and then just any answers that change for your post-instructional, just put those answers in red. Just highlight them in red. That's a really easy way for you and for me to see how your answers have changed. So just highlight your answers on the post-instructional in red, and we can see very quickly if you've been able to answer those questions more effectively as a result of being part of the class. So part 1 is just a redo of the pre-instructional. Shouldn't take you very long at all to do that. Part 2 then is when we really get into budget construction. So this takes a little bit more discussion and explanation. So here in part 2, what I'm utilizing, because I'm utilizing an exercise, a budget exercise from Mark Huddleston. And several years ago, Mark Huddleston published a book called The Public Administration Workbook. And I was fortunate for, I think it went through 3 or 4 revisions to be a reviewer on each one of those editions. And one of the benefits of being a book reviewer is, you don't get paid a lot of money for it, but you do get to use the content from that book in your courses. And so that's one of the reasons why we're able to still use this Huddleston exercise. But in this exercise, you are being charged with the task of being a deputy budget director. And you are being instructed to prepare a new consolidated budget based upon the parameters that are laid out in the Huddleston exercise. And what you will do is you will, using the exercise, which I'll show you in a second, you will put together a very simple line item budget that will be a consolidation of all the existing branch libraries in the exercise. So let me just go ahead now and just show you. Let me stop this share. And let me go ahead and show you the Huddleston file. Hopefully I have it here. On our Beachboard site, I have this file. Hopefully you see this says library budget, AC Andrews, Deputy Budget Director. This is the Huddleston PDF file that I have available for you on our Beachboard site. This is the exercise that we are going to be using. Now, it's a bigger file. The only thing you really need to pay attention to in this file, you can skip all of this. Only thing you really need to pay attention to in the file is this thing called Form 56. Form 56 is a memo. And this is a memo from the budget director to the deputy budget director, and you're going to be playing the role of the deputy budget director, regarding the county's library budget. So as part of this exercise, what has happened is that the county supervisors had a meeting and they all voted to approve a consolidation plan for the county's library system. So what they want to do is they want to consolidate the budget. What they currently have is they have all of these different library branches. Each library branch has its own unique budget. What the supervisors want you to do is they want you to take all these individual budgets and combine them, consolidate them together into one county-wide library consolidated budget. But in doing that, you have to abide by the 6 parameters that are laid out here in Form 56. So as you consolidate the budget, you're going to have to, number 1, make sure that in your consolidated budget, all existing public libraries in the county, including branches in the city of Waynesfield, which is the largest branch library, all branches must remain open. You cannot close any library branches. Everything has to stay open. Number 2, the county's cost-sharing agreement with municipalities assumes that there will be an overall savings of 3% from the aggregate of the existing library budgets. So the first thing, and I've got a line item spreadsheet I'm going to share with you that you will use to do this assignment. The first thing you want to do is add up how much money is currently being spent by all of the individual branch libraries. So add up how much money they're all spending, all taken together as a total. Then take 3% off of that total spending, and that then becomes the new target for your newly consolidated budget. So you got to cut 3% from the current spending level. That doesn't sound all that hard, but it becomes a little bit more difficult with the additional parameters. Number 3, no cuts are to be made in any full-time library employees. Cuts may, however, be proposed in other categories. So you cannot make any cuts to full-time employees. You cannot lay any full-timers off. You cannot cut their hours. You can't do any cuts whatsoever to full-time employees. Now, part-time employees are fair game. If you want to release part-time employees, you want to RIF them, you want to reduce their hours, you can certainly do that as long as doing that does not jeopardize the ability to keep the branch library open. You can also make cuts to other categories such as maintenance, supplies, acquisitions, which is actually getting the material, the media to the library. All those other things you can cut within reason, but you cannot touch full-time employees. Parameter number 4, and this is the one that makes it really difficult to do. As per the county's agreement with public employee unions, salary scales within job classifications are to be standardized at the highest levels currently paid by any of the newly consolidated units. And what does that mean? In plain English, that means that everyone must get paid the same in each position classification. So all branch librarians need to be paid the same amount. All reference librarians need to be paid the same amount. All assistant librarians need to be paid the same amount. All part-time employees need to be paid the same hourly wage. And those amounts are the highest amount currently paid by any of the branch libraries. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be standardizing salaries up for a lot of employees within the county library system. So everyone has to get paid the same amount in their classification, and it must be the highest amount currently being paid. So nobody gets a cut in pay. Some people are staying the same. Some people are getting an increase in their pay. And to make the process a little bit easier for you, when you look at the spreadsheet, you'll see that by far the largest branch is the city of Waynesfield. And the city of Waynesfield, as the largest branch, currently pays the highest amount for all classifications with the exception of one. There's only one classification where Waynesfield does not have the highest salary. I'll let you find that on your own. But for all the other positions, you're going to be standardizing salaries up to the amount that's being paid currently by the City of Waynesfield branch. So you can see how difficult this is, that you're not only required to cut 3%, but you can't cut full-time employees. You got to keep all the branches open, and a whole bunch of people are going to end up getting salary increases as a result of parameter number 4. Number 5, all township and village librarians who were previously designated head librarians, whether full or part-time, should be redesignated branch librarians and are to be compensated accordingly. And we'll look at the spreadsheet in a second, but you'll notice on the spreadsheet there are some branches where they have head librarians. Those head librarians are going to become branch librarians and will then get paid the amount currently paid to branch librarians by the City of Waynesfield, because Waynesfield pays the most to branch librarians. One complicating factor here, and I'll show you in the spreadsheet in a second, is that there are some library branches currently that have part-time head librarians. Those part-time head librarians are going to become part-time branch librarians. Unfortunately, there's not currently a position for a part-time branch librarian. All the branch librarians currently are full-time. So you're creating a new position called part-time branch librarian, and you have to then compensate it accordingly. My recommendation for you is, since there's not currently a part-time branch librarian position, you take half of the salary of the full-time branch librarian, and that's what you pay your newly created part-time branch librarians. Full-time branch librarians are currently getting paid $34,000 a year by the City of Waynesfield, so I'd recommend just pay your part-time branch librarians $17,000. Just a nice quick little way in which you can handle that problem that you don't already have part-time branch librarians. And then your final parameter is that the position of head librarian in the City of Waynesfield will be eliminated. A new position, Director of County Libraries, will be created, budgeted at $45,000. So you're taking all the head librarians and making them branch librarians, with the exception of the head librarian in Waynesfield. That head librarian in Waynesfield will become the Director of County Libraries and ends up getting a raise from $40,000 up to $45,000 a year. So when you put together your consolidated spreadsheet, your consolidated budget, if you have head librarian anywhere in there, that's going to be an error. There should not be any designation for head librarian whatsoever in your final consolidated budget. They're all gone. They've either become branch librarians, or the one at Waynesfield became the Director of County Libraries. So the consolidated budget that you put together must abide by those 6 parameters. You can ignore all the rest of this file. Don't worry about any of that. Just look at those 6 different parameters there in Form 56 and use that to guide you in putting your consolidated budget together. And to make it easier for you, I have provided you also on our Beachboard site with a spreadsheet called Line Item, and this is it. This is the spreadsheet for all of the existing pre-consolidation library branches within the county. You'll see it's a very simple line item budget, and you've got in column B, this is Waynesfield. This is the largest branch library, and the one, obviously, as I said before, that pays the most, for the most part, for every position except one. So most of your salaries are going to be standardized up to what Waynesfield is paying. So this column is for Waynesfield. Here are each of the positions currently in Waynesfield. There's a head librarian that will become Director of County Libraries. You have branch librarians, reference librarians, assistant librarians, so on and so on. As you move down, you'll see that you have other staff members, administrative assistants. Those are all full-time. You've got part-time reference librarians, part-time assistant librarians, part-time circulation clerks, secretaries, maintenance workers, part-time pages. And then down here, you have your other operating expenses, acquisitions, getting the material to the branches, supplies, utilities, maintenance, and another category. So as you look at your spreadsheet, column B, those are all the amounts that are paid for each one of those items. The C column is your N, the number of positions in each one of those items. So for full-time, you have the actual number of people who are in those positions. For part-time, you have the total number of hours that are being worked by people in those positions. So part-time circulation clerks are working a total of 7,020 hours. Maintenance workers are working a total of 2,000 hours. Okay. And then your column D is just the product of multiplying column B times column C. That then gives you your total in column D. So see, for everything in the city of Waynesfield, the city of Waynesfield branch is currently paying out a total of $1,743,345. That's to keep the branch Waynesfield going on a yearly basis. Another branch here in column E is Clear Creek. You can see it's a much smaller branch. They have one head librarian who's going to end up becoming a branch librarian. As head librarian, the person's getting paid $25,000. Once you convert them into a branch librarian, they're going to automatically get a raise up to $34,000. So they'll probably be very happy campers. Down here, you have maintenance workers. And that's how much they are getting paid, $5.45, working 780 hours. Then you have all your other expenses here. You can see Clear Creek's budget is only $37,361. So it's by far one of the smallest branches in the county library system. Then you have Wolford, you have East Wolford, you have Glen Ridge, you have Littleton, you have Keeler, you have Mount Tom, you have Warren, you have Lansdale, and you have New Bremen. And those are all your different branch libraries. So your job is to take all of these different branch library budgets, consolidate them together into one county-wide library budget, reducing spending by 3% while abiding by all 6 of those parameters in form number 56. So my recommendation to you as you start this assignment, the very first thing you want to do is you want to go down here and add up the total amount that's currently being spent across all your library branches, take off 3%, and that will then give you your target figure that you must meet with your consolidated library budget. And just to let you know, it's going to be in the range of about $2.9 million. So that gives you your target figure. And that's the first thing that you need to do is come up with that target budget amount. Then you can go back and start abiding by all those other parameters in Form 56. So you can go back and start converting your branch librarian positions into your head librarian positions into branch librarians, your Waynesfield head librarian into director of county libraries, make all of your salary changes. You'll see that the formulas are already in here for you. So all you have to do is make your changes to the numbers and your formulas will change automatically. I left the formulas in here because I know some folks don't have a lot of experience with Excel. Some people have a lot more experience with it. So I just wanted to kind of level the playing field, just kind of leave those salaries in those formulas in there for you. I will mention to you though, if you don't have much experience with Excel and you want to learn more about Excel, Dr. Moore put together an Excel workshop that is linked on our Beachboard site. I'll show you where that's at in just a second. You can go there and there's a series of videos, instructional videos that he has prepared that will walk you through all the different skills that you can develop in using Excel. You won't need all those skills for doing this assignment because the formulas are already in the spreadsheet for you, but it could be very useful for you later on if you don't know a lot about how to use Excel. We are technically not allowed to teach Excel in a accredited MPA program. The expectation is that students will know Excel coming into the course. That's why Dr. Moore set up that workshop and put all those videos there in case you don't have experience with Excel. We can't take class time to go through and teach Excel. We're not allowed to, but that's there as a resource if you need to brush up on Excel. So you'll be taking all of these branch library budgets. You're going to consolidate them all together into one county library budget, abiding by those 6 parameters in form number 56. Once you do that, then the other part of part 2 is, in addition to turning in your spreadsheet of your consolidated budget, I'm also asking that you turn in justifications for the cuts that you made. because you're going to have to make some cuts in order to get down to your 2.9 million or so figure. There are going to be some cuts you're going to have to make. So I want you to justify for me why you made the cuts that you made. There are a couple different ways you can do that. If you are conversant in Excel, you can always use the comment feature in Excel, and you can place comments into your cells and actually put notes in there with your explanations of your justifications directly in the Excel spreadsheet. That's preferable if you're able to do that. If you're not able to do that, you can create a different Word file and just list for me all your justifications for the different cuts that you made. But in part 2 of the post-instructional, you'll be turning in your consolidated spreadsheet and then the justifications either within the spreadsheet or in a separate Word file for all the cuts that you made to get to your target amount of approximately $2,929,000. That's part 2 of your post-instructional assignment. Again, the line item spreadsheet is available on the Beachboard site along with the Huddleston file. And again, the Huddleston file, all you need is just that Form 56. Both those are available for you on our Beachboard site. Okay, questions on the post-instructional? I know as you work out, there'll be a lot more questions that will emerge. You're kind of just being presented with it now. So this is not your only chance to ask questions. We can address questions through email next week, whenever the questions emerge. But any questions at this point in time?
The post-instructional, the part 2, it's just dealing with expenditures. Is that right?
Yes, it's just the part 2 is just putting together this spreadsheet and your justifications, right? Only expenditures.
Okay, thank you.
Let me go ahead and stop that share, and let's see if I'm still logged in. Let me go to. In fact, let me share my screen. It'll probably be easier to do it that way. And let me go to our course page. Okay. Hopefully you can see our course page. And in fact, let me scroll down and I'll put it in student view. Let's do that real quick. Okay. We are now in student view. Hopefully you've already been on here and you've looked at our course site, but if you haven't, let me just give you a real quick tour and let you see what's on here and how to navigate everything. I like to put a lot of my information into the content section. So the syllabus is there. PowerPoint slides for each week will be there too in week 2, 3, and you can see all the weeks. I put all those in there for you. Under pre and post instructional, I've given you the pre-instructional assignment instructions, the post-instructional assignment instructions. There's the Huddleston file for Form 56, and there's your line item spreadsheet you'll be using to complete part 2 of the post-instructional. Here is the Excel tutorial that Dr. Moore put together. It's a link, and again, it's a series of videos, and so you can go through those videos if you want to brush up on your Excel skills. Here is a link for our recordings, and so the day after class, so by Wednesday, I will have the recording up here. Again, it'll have subtitles on there, and so it'll be available for you. Usually what I do is I load up to YouTube, get the subtitles on, and then load it up the next morning. So you can go back and you can review these sessions at any time that you would like. So that's all in the content area. Then also you've got your Dropbox where all your assignments are going to be coming in. So I've got Dropbox set up for the pre-instructional, post-instructional, and the final exam. And then for your discussion board, your graded discussion boards, I have a form here for questions. And so if there are any questions that you think would be beneficial for others to get an answer to as well, that would be beneficial for the class, you can feel free to put those questions in there, or you can email your questions directly to me. There's your introductory form. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. For Beachboard number 1, which is your first graded Beachboard assignment, what I'm asking you to do is to go to this website, which is the website for the governor's budget, review the governor's budget or his initial budget proposal, the me revised, and then the final budget as it was passed and approved, and identify 2 priorities in the governor's budget, and then discuss how those priorities changed as a result of the May revise. You'll see as you go there, where the link is still working for us, this is where it will take you, and you'll see you got the proposed budget from January with all the governor's priorities, the May revision with all the revised revenue amounts, and then the actual budget as it was enacted through the state legislature. So read through those three different areas and then pick a couple of priorities out of the governor's budget and then talk a little bit about how those priorities have changed as a result of changes in the May revise. I do ask you go ahead and respond to classmates. I'm not going to grade your responses to classmates, as I said. I'm most interested in your response to my initial prompt, but I do encourage you to go ahead and respond to classmates if you have the time and the inclination to do so. But I'm not going to grade your classmate responses. Beach board number 2, consider the budget that you use for your pre-instructional. Discuss which budget format, what budget formats used by the city in the budget. If you had to recommend a different budget format, what format would you recommend and why? Beach board number 3, for the city you use in your pre-instructional assignment, please obtain a copy of the annual financial report. It's no longer, most cities are not calling it a CAFR anymore. They're now calling it an annual comprehensive financial report. So they've inverted those letters. So instead of a CAFR, it's now usually called an ACFR. So whichever way your city refers to it. If you cannot obtain the financial report from the city, you may use one from another city. After reviewing the financial report, answer the following questions. According to the information reviewed in the financial report, how fiscally solvent is the city? What information did you arrive at, or did you use to arrive at that conclusion? And then did your fiscal solvency conclusion differ between your review of the budget and the financial report? One of the things we'll learn in this course is that if you want to see a complete picture of the finances of a city, those are the two documents, the budget and the annual financial report. The budget is a prospective document. The budget will tell us this is how the city plans on spending its money in the next fiscal year. The annual financial report is a retrospective document. It tells us this is how the city actually spent its money in the last fiscal year. So by combining the prospective of the budget and the retrospective of the annual financial report, that's how you get a good, clear, holistic picture of the finances within a city. Beach board number 4, compare the different types of long-term debt the cities utilize to fund their capital projects, identify different types of bonds and discuss their advantages and disadvantages. And then finally, beach board number 5, consider the city you chose for your pre-instructional assignment. How progressive is a tax structure in your city? Recommend different types of taxes or different distribution of tax revenue for your city. And why did you make that type of recommendation? So we're looking at the progressive versus regressive nature of the tax structure in your city, and then making a recommendation for how you would do it differently to hopefully make that tax structure a little bit more progressive. So those are the 5 discussion boards. Again, you'll be going directly in there and posting your response directly into those respective discussion forums. Okay, let's see. And I think everything else, you're familiar with Beach Board, you've used it before, so you know how everything works. So there you go. We won't be using the CAFR in the Huddleston exercise, so we won't need that. We're just going to use that line item budget, and that will be the primary tool that we're going to use for Huddleston. That's the course, that's the website, that's the syllabus. Those are all the assignments. And so questions. Any other questions about anything related to the course? Anything at all? If not, then again, I would recommend that you, between now and next Tuesday, post your introduction, make it concise, but let us know a little bit about yourself. And then also think about what city you're going to use for your pre-instructional assignment. If you have any questions about whether or not that city's budget's going to work, feel free to send me an email. I would ask that you identify, here's the city I'm going to use, and give me the link, and so I can actually go and look at the budget. That's only if you're not sure if the budget will work. For the most part, it's going to work as long as it has a good budget summary. If the budget summary is easy to use, it breaks down revenues and expenditures, then that budget is probably going to be a good one for you to use for the pre and the post-instructional assignments. Okay. Well, that's all I have for tonight. I told you tonight will be a little short of a session because we're just going over the course and course requirements. If you have any questions about the syllabus, any questions about the course, feel free to reach out to me and shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, I'll stop this recording. I'll get this recording loaded up into our Beachboard site by tomorrow morning. And then we'll be back at it 4 o'clock next Tuesday. And we'll talk about public finance, public goods, private goods, and all those good foundational topics to get us really going in terms of the course material. All right. Look forward to working with everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. And I will see you next Tuesday. Take care, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Good night.
Professor.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.